Rocking Chair Session. With Elisa Di Battista and Maria Teresa Barber. Hello everyone,
and welcome to RCS Rocking Chair Sessions, Volume 29 with artist Jenny Larsson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Thank you so much for driving down from Hollywood for our recording today.
Thank you for having me.
And it's our pleasure. I was really excited. We were actually scheduling the interview when the hurricane hit, right? And we were still like, you were so cool. You were still like, oh yeah, let's do it. But then finally we had to give in, and
proximity won. Yeah.
I was driving north to Colombia on that day because we were escaping the hurricane.
Be specific, Colombia,
South Carolina.
Yeah.
But you stayed, right?
I stayed.
You stayed in Hollywood, yeah. And so, thank you so much for coming. And I've, full disclosure, I've been performing with Jenny Larsson before, and I've seen her perform, and I'm a big fan. So, just for full disclosure. And we're gonna jump right in.
Yes.
Volume 29, did you say that?
Yes, I did. Insane. We're so close to 30.
Yeah, okay.
29 of it's 19. It's my favorite number.
29.
In French. Yeah. So, Jetty, tell us your last name. Where does it hail from? Larsson, with
Larsson.
2 S's.
Yeah. Well, in Sweden, back in the days, you were always called by the father's name. So if your father's name was Lars, then you're the son of Lars, although I'm the daughter. I don't know, but they always keep it at the son. So at some point back in time, I guess, there was a guy named Lars. And so that's where Larsson is from. Yeah, I'm the son or daughter of Lars, although Lars was probably my great-great-great-grandfather or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they just kept it, and it just stayed. So normally, I guess they changed it for every now and then you need a new name now. Can't call everybody Lars.
Yeah, Lars Jr. Lars Jr.
Yeah, you can maybe Lars Jr. But then it gets tiring, and you need to change it up a little bit. So I don't know, but from far back in time.
From back in time.
That's a great story. And it brings us already to Sweden, where you were born and you grew up in Sweden as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's so much to say.
We were just talking about the choir. So, as a kid in Sweden,
I sang in choirs. Yeah. Yes, quite a lot. And we toured, and I love that. I love to sing. I sing in the car all the time. So
you were singing when you were driving down here?
Oh yeah, totally.
What did you sing?
I sing. I don't know. I find songs, I buy them, and then I have my little playlists, and then I try to learn those melodies, the harmonies, the lyrics, and whatever, and that's my go-to place, and I feel like it really relaxes me. It's a great thing to do when you don't have anything else to do, and sitting in the car is just so boring otherwise.
It's you time.
It's like my music mecca, because I'm alone and I have time to really go through playlists or artists that I haven't heard in a long time, and I can, you can always rewind. You can take on 1, 2, 3, 4 takes. You can sing that many times you want.
And I have to say, there was a really special song that I discovered because of you and the performance that you were doing at the Nerve, I believe, when we did the performance with the Water Buckets.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That was a very special song. Do you remember that? And I listened to it. I learned the lyrics for the performance also.
Right. And I can't even remember it now.
And then I discovered that me neither.
That's how special it was.
But there were.
It was something about rain.
Yeah, it was. about rain, and there were 4 or 5 women from Sweden singing in it, right?
Oh, lovely.
And 2 very young women at a time now have a band and are called First Aid Kit. And I saw them in San Francisco playing with Conor Oberst for the big bluegrass festival.
Wow, you saw them.
And I rediscovered that was before I knew about this song, you know, and they were in that song.
Really? Why were they in that
really young,
song?
because they were just kids, you know. They were just
Really?
starting out their careers.
Because I thought that was Anna Tan time. Yeah.
That was her song, and then the 2 from First Aid Kit. I don't remember.
They took it over.
They were in the group, because there were like 4 singers.
Oh, okay.
A little background.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That was. But I feel like you're really using the music in your performances as well.
Do you feel that was like your first latch on to being in front of an audience and having to take on a certain persona or character to be able to kind of like confront the other and just like be able to spontaneously, like, well, not spontaneous, because I'm guessing you guys practice, like rehearse and stuff, to be able to just perform?
In
like, was
choir?
that like, yeah, because that still have to be on stage, you have to dress up, there's a certain, there's a ritual to it.
Yeah, I like to work with music. I was in a punk band as a teenager, and I'm a wannabe rock star.
Me too. Oh my God, I can totally see that. Yeah.
I'm trying to learn a guitar, and
But you're the lead singer. You don't need to learn the guitar.
Well, you can
I
play
would
a few
love to.
strings.
I mean, it's so cool. I would love to learn how to play the guitar.
You do it, Jenny.
I mean, I can play the drums. I'm a pretty good, you know, I'm good with beats and everything. But I would love to have the technique of doing a cool guitar solo, or whatever.
I can totally see you. You have to do it. You have to do it.
Well, I'm trying. I'm doing my best, but you know, time is very scarce.
Precious.
It's
It is.
hard.
Yeah, learning new things is also very
When I lived in the Everglades for a month, I played the guitar every night.
Ooh.
When I had the Airy residency.
Cool.
That was good.
When did that happen? When did you do the area?
I did it in January 2017. This year in January. But you asked me about Sweden, and it just, since my parents are divorced and I grew up in 2 different places and I moved around a lot, it's really hard to, you know, talk about the background in one little short sentence like that, or you know,
No,
little
totally.
paragraph.
We have 15 minutes, Jenny. Do it.
We have all the time you need.
So I don't know. I don't even know where to start.
Well, I guess when did you start to dabble with these ideas of considering yourself as a creative individual? I would say, like, when did you start expressing that? Or
I think my whole life, I always, being the only child back then, I lived in my head a lot, and I saw these images and I had these stories coming up, and I read a lot, and I had a really wild imagination, so I really believed in everything I read almost. I remember I told my friends, maybe when I was 6, that I was best friends with Aslan, you know, the lion from Narnia. That he used to come down and visit me.
Cool.
And I'm like, come, let's look at the stars. He's coming. We just have to wait patiently. And we were waiting, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, nothing is happening. I'm like, no, you just have to wait. And I was 6 years old.
Aww,
but anyway, I really thought he was real,
cool.
you know, and that we had a magical connection somehow. Me and Aslan.
Wow.
The lion.
The lion.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
You didn't read those books?
No.
Oh, now they made
But they
movies.
made a movie out of it, yeah.
But the
No,
books
I
are good.
You were chosen one. They were chosen. That's why he never appeared for them.
I guess so. No, so the imagination was just going completely wild, and it just never ended. It just never left me, and I'm so happy for it. Yeah, and.
When did you start dancing? Because you told us you did the singing early on. But
yeah, I started late. I started in high school. I didn't know. It was like a windy road, I guess. Eventually, because in Sweden you have to choose all of the high school programs are sort of magnet programs, so you have to make a true decision towards where your interests are and where you want to go in life. And first I thought I was going to do something else, and then I changed my mind completely. And I was like, okay, but I've been doing theater for my entire life. I always liked to put on shows and singing and dancing and, you know, doing costume and creating these alternative worlds. And I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for the theater and the dance program. And I sort of took every second lesson in theater and every second lesson in dance. And after half a year, I think the director told me that I had to make a choice, basically. And it was extremely hard. And I basically flipped a coin, and it became dance. But I was just as passionate for theater at that time, at least. And so I just danced during this magnet high school program, and then that was it.
And then after high school,
I went to a dance school to get a little bit more technique, perhaps, under my feet, under my skin, and then I got into a bachelor program in Stockholm, focusing more on becoming a dance teacher. I guess more than anything else, perhaps. And I mean, I always been teaching dance more or less since then.
Already from that, like from young, like 20s, or?
I arranged dance classes out in little villages, you know, where there was nothing to do, and I realized that there was a lot of money in that business. So I got all the kids together, and I'm like, we're gonna dance together every Tuesday night. I come to your village, and they were so excited, these little kids, and just round them up in the gymnasium or whatever, the little room, and then you teach dance for an hour, and you leave with a lot of money in your pocket. And I did that for a while, and that was a good extra gig. But I mean, I do really like it, so yeah, it's something that I'm happy to do. Yes, totally. Totally.
And so Stockholm, the city, was that new for you, or did you grow up in a city?
No, that was new. Yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah.
Because I remember, I don't know which performance it was, if it was like the lake performance, but I always had the feeling that you come from like a more rural area.
Very much.
Like very much connected to the nature, very much like in... Yeah, where
I grew up on a farm, basically. My mom was like a hobby farmer, and if I wanted to have a play date, I had to bike for an hour at least to get to my closest friend.
To the next neighbor?
Well, I mean, I guess there was a couple of houses in between, but if I wanted to, you know, play with one of my friends, then I had an hour on the bike and then an hour back, and that was it. So yeah, it was really rural, to say the least. And it's the same where my dad lives, up in the mountains. It's very very much like that too.
So you had two parents that were both living kind of like removed from
very much. So whenever you know, if you want to move on to university studies or wherever, you always have to leave home and move into the city. I think that it's very common in Sweden that you move away. Either you move away for high school at 15, 16, or you move away after you're done with high school. And that's it. And
new journey begins.
Then the new journey begins. So I moved to Stockholm, and it gave me an opportunity to start fresh in a way. And I think it was a really interesting period in my life, a little bit like moving over here to Florida, that you get a second chance to start something, and I guess perhaps change things about your life or the way you live, and also if people don't know you, you can't really be held accountable. This maybe sounds really weird, but I don't know. I guess I I had an image or a certain reputation or whatever in that little, city where I grew up in, going to high school, and then moving to the city, I was a no one. No one knew me. And it gave me an opportunity to try a lot of different new things and with no expectations. And that was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one big thing about growing up in a small, like I grew up in a small village too, is like everyone knows you and everyone watches you, and everyone remembers all the things that you did.
Oh yeah.
Since the day you were born and brought home from, and that's something that people in Miami probably don't can't really understand like this, because it's such a big city and such a big community. But it's really like my neighbors still knew the sentence my father said when he came back from the hospital after I was born.
Right.
And it was kind of like, it's a girl, we'll have to raise it anyway, kind of. And they would always tell me that. So it's like you can't escape that. That whole, and the city can be like this liberating thing also, where you're like starting fresh, and you're like kind of like also further away from your family or your roots in a way, right?
The little town like that, it really has some very positive things to it, but it's also a lot of negativity tied into that, because they place you in a box. And and sometimes you outgrow that box, or you want to try and fit in a new box, or you're just sick and tired of everybody knowing what you did last summer. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. And to me, I really needed to start fresh, I think.
Did you find commonalities with classmates in Stockholm with that they were also escaping these like really small towns? And so do you feel like you built a community there?
Yes.
Do you still stay in contact with some of them?
I do.
Nice.
I do.
That's lovely.
Oh yeah.
When did you move from Stockholm then to Florida?
I moved from Stockholm to Gothenburg, the second largest city in Sweden, and I was working there, dancing, touring a little bit, and then I went on a trip to Thailand, to Laos, and I've also been in Spain for a while, and I've just had kind of a time where I traveled a lot, and then after that I sort of moved over to the US. Yeah.
And right away to Florida? Or?
No, I lived a little bit in Miami, and then I moved to New York, and then I moved down from New York to Hollywood.
To Hollywood, which is still South Florida. That's really nice.
We kind of always ask that question, but what was, like, especially after New York, and at least I was in New York too, so what was the inspiration, or what made you come back to Florida or to Hollywood, or like what drew you back here?
Because there's not a lot of nature in New York except for like the parks.
That's true. Yeah,
right.
Nature is.
I'm not a big city person, I have to say. It was really fun for a while, but my youngest son is born in New York, and after that happened, I felt like it was time to move on. I couldn't see myself raising him in such a big city, and so we have some family connections down here in South Florida, so it was sort of family based. Family made us move down.
Did you like the move once you decided to come down here?
It was definitely a culture.
Yes, I was about to say that. Yes,
for sure. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. It's so different from, like, I feel like it's so different from Europe, the United States in general, and then Florida, and especially Miami, is so different from the United States. So it's kind of like a double culture shock in a way.
Yeah, definitely. But it's an adventure. It's fun.
How long have you been back here now?
Maybe 10 years.
Nice.
Really?
So now you're a true South Floridian.
No. Yeah.
I know over the summer you're usually not
escaping.
Right?
Yeah. I go back to Sweden every summer. I go back in the winter time too, but not as often.
When you started, when you came basically to Hollywood, you knew you're gonna be here for the next foreseeable future. What were like the first creative projects that you did, and how was that? I mean, our community 10 years ago,
so different.
Oh God, yeah,
totally. It was like so different.
Yeah,
than it is
no,
now.
Hollywood. I mean, nothing happened in Hollywood. I always had to drive down to Miami. Nothing happened in Fort Lauderdale either, because this was before Fat Village and things got a little bit more interesting in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Back then we had Incubate in Wynwood, that Heather opened, Heather Maloney, and Corey, and that was basically my first contact with the Miami artists and the dance scene. And I really liked the space. I really liked hanging out there. My first project, I think it was tied into school, because I went back to school and I started studying for my MFA through University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So I was in Milwaukee every now and then, and so we had choreography classes basically, and the ideas and the themes that I was working with during those choreography classes, I guess I kind of kept working on once school was over. So that the MFA, those 1.5 years, kind of shoot me out there.
So the school also kind of helped you to kind of get a footing here in.
Yeah, it whipped me, and I really needed I needed someone
push.
to. Yes, totally, totally. I really needed that.
And what were the next steps for you? Was there then the Miami Light project? Is that the next?
I don't even remember.
Or
These are so many years ago.
Or were you then, I know you started your own company as well.
Yeah, eventually I did that. I just started creating work. I showed a little bit here, showed a little bit there, and eventually I found out about grants and things that I could apply for, and I started applying for more and more money or more projects, and things just started to roll kind of. But I mean, I started off the first one year, or I don't know what, the first couple of projects was on an extremely low budget, to say the least. But I'm used to that from being a child, putting theater acts together, and so making my own costume and selling soda and whatever. And I guess it was just an extension of that. It wasn't a big deal.
From the project now, I'm kind of like selecting it a little bit also from the projects that I experienced. But one of the really big projects that you did was the land project. Do you want to talk a little bit about that project?
Sure.
That was a very special project, I feel, for me to be part in also, but I feel also for you that was a really
it was interesting.
A really interesting piece, yeah.
I mean, I like the Grass Stains as an organization, and their strive to have the art reaching the public, and doing so for free, and really trying to explore South Florida and really let the artist explore South Florida as well, because you get this stipend, you get this budget, this money, and you have a task, you have a goal, and to me it was really hard actually to find a site that talked to me, but also, I mean, you can find places that are really interested, but then you're going to have to be able to work with them and with the people that owns them or with the people that manages them. And it becomes an extreme, it's really complicated to get the permits, and where are they going to park, and how we're going to allow them to come in and out, and how we're going to manage the ticket situation. Do we want to put an audience cap on? And we do want the event to be free, but in the same time, maybe we don't want to have 500 people coming. Is this an intimate piece or not? And most of the time, I guess I tend to choreograph for the smaller kind of audience. So there were a lot of things to take into consideration. I was really happy though. I found the FIU Nature Preserve over at the university campus. And also, obviously, because they were planning on tearing down almost half of it, and I don't even remember, I think it was going to become a soccer field or something like that, but they were going to build something on it. It's not going to be a nature preserve anymore. Obviously, that made it much more urgent and interesting to work on too. So I choreographed for 5 different spots inside the preserve. As an audience member, you met up at a specific spot. You got a map and you had an hour to go in and explore. And it was up to you whether you wanted to find these 5 spots or just stay with one, or you could take them in any order you wanted. You could just walk that preserve however you wanted. You had your hour and then you had to be out. And we took the next round of audience members for the next show. And so I think one was just a sound installation with some props, and then the other 4 were live performances, and we also had some live musicians. You played the harmonica.
I did.
Maria. And then I had 3 musicians at one spot that played together also.
In the center spot. There was kind of like this band almost,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. No, it was great, but it was obviously challenging as well. I remember we had to cancel because of weather too.
Yes, we did.
That was exactly a year ago. Yes. Pretty much in October. And we were supposed to have it one weekend, and it had to get canceled because there was a tropical depression or some sort of storm coming in, and then we had to move it. And the rehearsals were really nasty, and I remember having conversations about the Zika viruses. I had one dancer that was asking me, so is it safe to be in here and work? Since we have so many mosquitoes and they're talking so much about the Zika viruses. This is when they sprayed.
Last year, the bakehouse was in the center spot of the Zika. We were right in the middle of it.
I had like 7 nosebleeds after they sprayed me. It was horrible.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was definitely it was a big different kind of process.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, I haven't been in Florida for that long, but just to discover like this nature preserve, it was kind of like this hidden spot, in the middle of FIU, and also like this urgency about, that they're just going to tear it down and make another, I think, really a football field or something. And it was really kind of like, I felt like you were finding this oasis, you're finding this spot of nature in this kind of not really beautiful neighborhood,
Right.
It's kind of like, there's the university, and then of course there are the Everglades, not that far, but still this is kind of like this nook. This was like an oasis,
It's really a hidden gem. And there's so many FIU students that has no idea
that it's
about it's existing, and it's on the other side of a building, and you just haven't had the time or the energy or the curiosity to walk around the building and see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And I really like to try and make people go into the unknown and challenge them a little bit, push the envelope a little bit. Especially here in Miami, everything is so maintained and well manicured in a way that I want to help them to dare to go out into the so-called wild and realize that they're going to survive. And you grow by the experience. You need to push that a little.
Yeah. And for me, it was definitely like that. I mean, I was kind of like on the ground and on trees and and like playing with the leaves. And I haven't done that since I was a child. Kind of growing up in Austria like that, also very much in nature. But it's been a long time since I felt really connected to nature in that way. And then another performance that I was really fascinated by was in. You were commissioned by the Girls Club collection in Fort Lauderdale to do this piece that was the warehouse in Fat Village, right?
Yeah, it was one of their warehouses. Yeah. You're talking about searching for Arctic winter.
Yes.
In Florida.
And you were sitting sweating in the warehouse in Fat Village where there's no AC.
And the dancers were wearing skiing outfits.
Nice.
And not just any, they were snowsuits. They were like not just, you don't ski in them anymore because it gets too warm. That's how thick they were. It was amazing. They looked like little Michelin, like, you know, amazing.
Yeah, I like to play with contrast like that, and I really think that timing-wise it worked out so well that we performed it when it's the warmest here. Yeah. It's the warmest peak here in Florida.
Did you have like performers fainting during practice because it was so hot, or?
No, actually not. They were real troopers.
Nice. No.
Yeah.
And they were from your collective, right? Mm-hmm. From the Wild Beast Collective.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit, please? Mm-hmm. The Wild Collective.
Yeah. So we're five artist members at the moment. So it's me, and then Rachel Carroll and Liselotte Pitlow. They're my dancers. And then I have Eddie Pennefiel, who's a visual artist, a media artist, and also musician. And then we have a Swedish musician who's a high school friend of mine. We went to the same class together.
So great.
And he started making music for dance. Back then he was more of a visual artist, and then I found out, I guess through Facebook or something, that he's writing music for all these dance performances back in Sweden. And I connected with him, and we started hanging out a little bit, and he's been ending up doing a lot of the music for a lot of my projects, and it's a really great collaboration. So his name is Dag Rosenqvist. So he's the fifth member. So he's like the musician, the go-to musician. Mm-hmm. So I send him images, and I tell him.
He's in Sweden, right?
Yeah, and I try to explain, try to give him as much meat as possible about, whatever project it is that we're working on, and then hopefully that inspires him, obviously, and then he sends music back to me, and then Eddie is putting everything together. If it's a film, let's say, if it's a film, then Eddie normally is doing the editing, it's a true adventure. I love collaborating with other artists, and I love to see what comes out of that collaboration. Mm-hmm. You never know,
pieces,
and I really like that. I really like the unknown, and I don't need to be in charge of things. I don't need to decide 100% how everything is going to turn out. I really rely, and I put a lot of trust into my collaborators, and so far it's been great. Mm-hmm. They're my extended family in a way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my artist family. Mm-hmm.
I love that the way you describe it, because it doesn't seem like you have a need to be obsessive in every little aspect of it, and it's more that you have an overall idea of what it is you more or less want to achieve, and then you're open to like the random happenings of the universe, whether it be weather or like you say, open interpretation of each individual artist to bring in their own, and their own feedback into the actual artwork, and then whatever comes will come. I do appreciate that aspect.
If you dare to do so, then there are so many unexpected things that are so great. It's like magic, Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you were thinking or whatever, but you always learn something from that process. Mm-hmm. And you just have to keep calm, basically. You just have to keep calm and waiting things out, and most of the time it really works out well. Mm-hmm. I learned something about myself too. And I really try to let go, and I like the act of letting go. And I don't want to be in control, and I don't want to decide what people should say or do. So I'm not an artistic director in that sense, that likes to control everything. I guess that's why I wanted it to be this way, an artist collective where we really are collaborating. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Together.
How did you come up with that idea? This idea of searching for the Arctic winter here in South Florida. How did that happen?
I think it started when I was in the Everglades, and I was working on the film called Home that we were shooting down in the Everglades, and we were working with mud and water, and I was sweating, and there were mosquitoes and horse flies and deer flies and God knows what, and they were biting me. It was nasty at
times. And it was January.
Well, in January it was nice, but we had to go back and shoot some scenes in April.
Oh no.
And apparently there was the season for horse flies or deer flies or whatever they were. And they were like hysteric. They were biting like the world was gonna end
like the
tomorrow.
Chicas, they're like little black bugs that just like fly when you try to hit them, or they're like really tiny?
These ones, they take a bite out of your flesh.
Oh.
Like they eat you.
Oh, and then you bleed. It's like a mosquito.
I don't know if I was bleeding, but I was, it was swollen.
You had holes in your body?
I don't know. This is what I read online, okay? I don't know. But they were nasty.
We will look this up.
They were really nasty, and I had like 50 bites on one leg.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I think somewhere in that process, rolling around in the mud, I was like, next time I want to talk about snow. It was just, I needed like the opposite somehow.
Yeah.
I was really longing for the cold winters and for snow and ice and like that kind of environment. And I'm really intrigued by different type of environments. And I already worked with forests, and I worked with lakes and water, and I worked in the Everglades and with mud and land. And I explored so many different parts now that it was just time. Mm-hmm. It just came to me. It was time to talk about snow. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. So in December this year, I'm going to fly back home, and we are going to shoot the filmed version, my next short film of Searching for Arctic Winter. I don't know if that's going to be the title, but it's definitely the same kind of theme, mm-hmm. where I want to work with snow, mm-hmm. and also the disappearance of snow. So mm-hmm. it's not just about me and my personal relationship to snow or whatever. I really want to talk about how it's disappearing in certain parts of the world. And where I'm from, there was always an abundance of snow everywhere. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I go home in the winter, we can't take the snowmobile from the house to wherever we want to go, because there's not enough snow in the forest. Mm-hmm. And that has never happened before. Mm-hmm. And I hear it from so many places all over all the time, that this region that used to be full of snow it's not anymore. Mm-hmm. I think when they filmed The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, mm-hmm. if I'm not mistaken, I remember I think they mentioned that they had to search for the snow, and they had to move further and further and further north, and the whole project just took on weeks and weeks and weeks and months longer than they expected, because the places where they had counted on serving snow didn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so they had to scout out new locations and find it, and it was melting and it was disappearing, and they had to they were hunting it.
And so maybe for people in Miami here, that doesn't sound like a bad thing if we have less snow, but for people who are living, for example, in Austria or in Sweden, we depend heavily on the snow because of, for example, winter tourism or mobility,
Yeah.
But
sure.
In Austria, for example, the glaciers have been getting smaller and smaller, and you were
mm-hmm.
able to ski easily in the summer just as well as in the winter. But now, glaciers are disappearing, and the winter tourism, of course, is taking a big hit if you don't have snow for skiing. I mean, I brought my husband from Miami. He's born here, to Austria for the first time in the winter, and there was no snow. I couldn't, he was not even freezing. I was like, oh my God,
It's so bad.
Well, it snowed here once in the 70s in Miami. I wasn't here for that.
I heard about it.
But I do recall being little, and I think the winters, I'm talking December, were quote unquote Florida cold. It was like 50s, but now we don't really get 50s until February. So yes, I've noticed a change as a Floridian myself, and how it's been shifting. Mm-hmm. But I do love, I feel like your performances always have that connect nature. Mm-hmm. So it's always this exploration, this play, this wonderland, this imagine, the narrative that you set, but it's always bringing back to the nature.
Yeah. If I am coming up with a theme, at least right now, when I create work, I guess they have a tendency to be very connected to nature, yes. But obviously, if this is a collaboration between me and someone else,
Yes.
then it could be a completely different type of work and a very different type of theme and so on.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, I have noticed that myself. I tend to combine the two, and I love the opportunity of being able to work outside and and create art at the same time. It's like the best of the two worlds that I know of. So, and I really think that we should go outside more today. And the kids especially, I guess, but also us adults, like we need to get out there.
Play outdoors and not so much inside with like virtual reality.
There is a magazine called Outside that I'm subscribing to, and I'm reading it like the Bible, and I'm reading about all these cool places and these adventures and expeditions, and I get so inspired. And I would like to have a magazine like that said Outside with Kids, and sort of giving you a little bit of a push and help towards accommodating that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
and I feel especially in South Florida,
so many great national parks.
I don't think I've ever spent as much time inside as I do since I moved to South Florida.
Well, it's the heat mostly, but we have so many great national parks, like John Penny Camp. You can go snorkeling. I remember going snorkeling when I was a child. You can go camping. Sebastian's Inlet, John Dickinson National Park. Like, there's a lot of great parks to be
and
outdoors
also
and
the
explore.
cold springs. I never made it up there, but they're but then of course the beach but it's still I feel like it's like the reverse. Like in Austria, you would stay inside in the winter, but then you still would go skiing, whatever temperature it was.
Yeah.
In Florida, you stay inside more in the summertime, but then you don't really have anything to do, where you can.
Well, there is heat stroke. I mean, I guess you could also freeze to death.
Yeah.
You can freeze to death.
Well, there is a saying in Sweden that goes, "There is no bad weather, only bad clothing."
Yeah.
True.
And it works, because you can always dress warmer. But here, if it's warm enough, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, bathing suit.
You can't dress cooler than bikini.
You can't dress down any more than that. So you just have to adapt. I think you just have to realize that Florida is all about water sports. It's about the water. It's the water that we're here for, I guess. We're not here to hike the forests.
Yeah.
Not really. So we just have to
invert that,
rewire ourselves and start kayaking more, or canoeing or snorkeling or whatever it is that we're doing. We just have to try and adapt.
It's like the ski.
Us immigrants, we have to just
switch the skis for the
kayak. The ski's not going to work here, so we have to find other things.
Water ski.
It's
water ski, sure.
And the crazy thing, I was scuba diving in mountain lakes in Austria, freezing my ass off, in temperatures where it was snowing outside, and I was scuba diving.
Crazy.
I have never been scuba diving here when the temperatures in the water.
Are you kidding?
They're so delicious here. I wanted to ask, I'm going a little bit more into your process, because you did more or less reveal how you were inspired while you were working for one project for the other project, being out in the Everglades with the mud and the heat. You're like, oh, now I have to work with the cold. I feel almost like you create this, you have this, you said, your really large imagination, you create these narratives. How do you more or less plan out the projects you have? Do you sit on them for a little bit? Do they just come to you while you're doing something else? Or do you have a book of sketchbooks full of different stories that you haven't yet, explored?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I probably have this sketchbook in my head, because it seems like there are certain parts of my brain that kind of stores it. So whether it's an image or a story or a situation or just an idea for a project, whatever it is, it gets stored here. In case I run out of ideas, I have a to-go-to case to open up. But otherwise, I think really working with something feeds new ideas. So the more creative you are, the more ideas you're going to get. It's sort of like an accumulative action. You know, you work and you get dirty and you dive into something, and while doing so, this new idea is coming, and this other idea is coming. When I was shooting the Forest Diaries in the forest of Sweden, I remember visiting this lake that I used to go to as a child, and I realized that I had never walked around the entire lake. I never walked around the entire lake. I only walked parts of it, and I saw this house on the other side, and I started wondering, you know, because I'm so curious. I really wanted to go and peek in and see who lived there, if someone is living there. Maybe it's an empty house. And just spending time by that lake and having those thoughts and these kind of ideas about, you know, trekking the lake and this journey and the unknown and that sort of birthed the next project, which was on the other side of the lake, where everything had to do with water and the portals and the unknown and death and journeys and.
Which I think is the image of the sneak peek, yeah. Which I inverted for the preview because I just love the trees. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So I do think that it's a generator. So if when you work and when you're at the peak of your creativity and when you're in this flow, I think that these images are coming maybe more easily. I don't know. That's at least how it works for me.
Makes me more receptive.
And do you usually start with performance and then move to the film? Or is it that sometimes the film and then you make a performance out of that?
I think I normally do the film first and then I make a performance, and then I'll see whatever I want to kind of include into the performance. Whether I want to include something or not.
Because in the film, that's usually you are the character in the film, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the collective usually with you, right? And then out of that, you add the other roles to it, right?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, we have 3 minutes. I've been talking a lot. Are there any, well, you mentioned that you would be going off to record, or further record, I should say, the project you were working on with the exploration of the cool and the melting of the snow. Are there any other upcoming shows or projects that you have interest in, or things that you're starting to now, you know, investigate in your work that you're excited about that you'd like to share with us?
I am sort of preparing for a performance piece that's related to searching for Arctic winter, where I want to combine some of the film elements that we are going to be capturing in December up in Sweden, and also perhaps live music. I would love to work with live musicians on stage, and I just feel like I'm not done with this theme yet, so I have to develop it more. I have to work on it from different angles and for a stage. I feel like that's the next step in that. The short film Home from Everglades National Park, that film is going to be part of an exhibition that's curated by Jane Hart for Art Basel.
Oh, wow.
It's at Redbridge Studios, and
do you have dates for that?
I think it's around the 12th of November, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
I think the opening reception is somewhere in the middle of November.
Okay, great.
It's out on Facebook.
Okay, and also we'll put a link of your website on our website, so if people want to click to the audio, they could also link up to your website.
Oh yeah,
to find that as well.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that. Redbridge Studios is here. It's another, just for listeners that don't know, it's kind of sort of like the Bakehouse or Art Center South Florida. It's another studio space for artists to create community here in South Florida.
Very close to the MoCA, up in North Miami, and it has 2 galleries under the bridge, and then upstairs is the Red Bridge, right? And then the studio spaces as well.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yay! Oh, Maria's last question.
Do you have any other things?
No, not as far as I can think of.
The films probably are going to come up. The film festivals are going to come up later. The very last questions that we have is is a magical one, and I think you're gonna like it. So you have been sitting in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
It's a magical rocking chair. You
Okay.
didn't know that. But the rocking chair grants you 3 wishes after you went through
This whole ordeal.
this process of the interview.
Oh.
And the thing is that you have to say them out loud in order for them to become true.
This is true.
So what would your 3 wishes be?
Oh God. And I'm so secretive that I never, I would never voice that ever. So I don't know what to do now. God, I don't know. Okay. So if I could magically wish for something, then I would be a great expert at playing the guitar.
Nice.
I would kill the guitar. I would.
It's gonna happen, you know that, right?
It's gonna happen for sure.
That I would be granted a bunch of project money, perhaps,
That's awesome.
for the next big theater production, and then I would love to have a nice climate and some free time to spend in the outdoors. Maybe educating kids to get out there.
Those are 3 good questions.
Like the outdoors, outside with
Outside
kids.
with kids. That's my next project.
That's your next project.
And it all started here, folks.
And I'm sure
you heard it here first.
People are gonna pay a shit ton of money for that project, like for
that
the
would be
dance
great.
classes.
I'm telling you, because the Girl Scouts is a waste of time. It doesn't cost a lot, but the only thing they do is sitting inside making drawings.
Are you
And I've been
serious?
so disappointed because my daughter joined for a year, and I think we went camping 2 or 3 times. And it was in cabins 2 of the times. And I want them to go outside and learn how to make a fire,
Go out in
pitch
nature.
a tent,
Totally.
make some knots,
Yes.
shoot the arrows,
Yes.
go out, kayak by yourself, and
You're gonna
become a
start
little
this
bit
book.
independent.
You're gonna start this book. I see it outdoors with kids.
And it's time.
That's what
It's
you're gonna
time
do.
to change this.
Yes.
So that's why we need to
Kids
get
that
out
make stuff. Yes, agreed.
and do it with them. Outside with kids.
Outside with kids. We're so excited you came.
You heard it here first on Rocking
Yes.
Chair Sessions.
Thank you
Jenny
so
Larsson's
much,
new project.
Jenny Larsson,
Yeah.
for coming
Thank you
to
so
sit
much for
down with
coming, Jenny.
us.
Thank you.
It was a great honor to have you here, and good luck with all your endeavors.
Yes, we want to hear more about like your upcoming projects and stuff.
We're gonna hear you guys again, or we're gonna be back again
next week, Monday, for volume 30.
for Volume 30 anniversary number again.
See you guys then.
See you guys. Thanks for tuning in again. Bye.
Bye.